Questions for Coach Pope? We'll start with Jimmy and then go to Rob.
Coach, outside of Tillman, what other receivers have stepped up so far?
Oh, man, that's been a long list this camp. We've been fortunate. Jalen Hyatt seems like a different guy. Mentally, physically, he's gained about 8 to 10 pounds. But the competitiveness that he showed last year, he's channeling it in a different direction. You see him respond the right way. You see him coach guys up when he's not in. He's really taken on that accountability role for himself and also the group. Squirrel White has been phenomenal. Chaz Nimrod has been a pleasant surprise. Along with the guys that are already here, Ramel Keaton had a good camp. He makes some really good plays today. Biggest thing with him is to emphasize him being consistent, not only on the underneath stuff, but challenging him down the field to make those plays consistently. Jimmy Callaway has been another one that stood out this camp.
Rob and then Ben.
Coach, just after what we saw last year from Cedric and Velas, two guys who had not done a lot prior to 2021, would you describe this offense as being just that receiver-friendly where you can plug guys in and they can become playmakers?
I think it's absolutely that, and it's a message to the younger guys in high school when you're looking for an offense to really be prolific in. You see Ced and Velas and what they did before we got here, and you see what they did when we got here, and it's like something off a movie, and it's real. You see us at practice every day, and it's a different guy every day who's able to get touches and show what they have. So I think this offense, if you're a receiver and you want to be productive, you want to get developed, you want to be a guy, I think this offense for sure is a receiver-friendly offense, no doubt.
Kelsey, two questions. One, who are some guys that maybe have been working in the slot that you also have confidence that you can bounce them to the outside as well?
First one that comes to mind is Hyatt, just because he played significant snaps in the slot last year. A lot of times when you have guys playing multiple positions, you want them to master one. Once they master that, then you can start to dive into other things. A couple other guys we can get to later on once they master the slot, but Hyatt's the first that comes to mind. We could definitely do that.
With Squirrel White's size, obviously guys are going to want to try to get their hands on him, be physical with him. What is his counter to that for him to still be successful and utilize that speed and elusiveness?
Don't get touched. Now, obviously sometimes you got to be ready to play with your hands, but a guy like that, you want to play in your wheelhouse. Squirrel's not, the world's strongest man. He probably never will be. He knows that. He could definitely be the world's fastest man. So you play within your wheelhouse. And that'd be different from a guy like Ced Tillman, right? His strength is his physicality. Then you want to embrace it and play into that, no doubt.
Austin and Patrick.
You talk about the message to high school kids. Do you think that a year where, basically backing up last year where Ced went from little production the year before to massive year over 1,000 yards, same thing with Velas, doing that with two new guys this year along with Ced just backs that message up to those high school kids? I know the offense has had success Central Florida to Tennessee, but to do it back-to-back years with different guys here, do you think that helps the message for you?
Absolutely. It continues to help us create our brand. That's it. Our brand as an offense obviously is a tempo. We're high-powered. It's receiver-friendly. Receivers from any form of life, any shape, size can come in this offense and be successful. And I think to your point, the more you do that, the more you have prolific receivers, the more it just adds to your brand. It's no different than what our head coach does. He's always got a quarterback, no matter where he is. He's done that consistently. His brand has been that, because of his history. And I think that's what we're trying to do at the wideout position.
Coach, what kind of camp has Brew McCoy had, and what have you seen from how he's coming along, and maybe what are your impressions of what he can bring to the offense?
Brew has been a pleasant surprise. He's been really good. For a guy who hadn't played in the season, he's obviously had to build stamina back up. But when you talk about just a physical specimen, and some things like you can coach, some things you can't, that guy's got a lot of things that you just can't coach. And for him, it's just honing in on the details, getting it polished up, him really to become a technician. He's a big athlete. He's physical. He's twitchy, can run. For us, it's just being able to get his stamina up, get him back in shape, and then polish up the little things with him.
How long does it take a wide receiver to learn and figure out how to play in this offense because you guys go so fast and do all those things?
It varies. It depends on what kind of learner you are. Some guys are visual. Some guys are kinesthetic. Some guys can get on the board, and write. I think for Brew, he's a kinesthetic guy. He's not a rep guy at all, but he's a kinesthetic learner. Walking through in our walkthroughs in the afternoon, when he's not in the game, when he's watching the guy that's in, taking mental reps on the side, walking through reps, all those things are extremely important for him. Especially since his stamina, we got to catch up. He's got to take advantage of the reps where he's not physically going.
Mike Dupree.
Yeah, Kelsey, with Jalen, talking about him just being a different player, how is that translated onto the field, and how do you make sure that those things translate into the season as well?
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing, is you have to make sure they translate during the season. So for me, for Jalen, even before I got promoted, when I was still the QC last year, anytime I'm talking to him, passing him in the hallway, just reminding him about putting those things on tape. Because it's ultimately what you want. If we have 10 good practices, by a guy, and then on Saturday he doesn't show up, you don't like that result. So just staying on him, not giving any leeway. Sometimes that gets annoying. Sometimes he's tired of hearing me talk. He gets annoying. He gets annoyed seeing my face. But you got to stay on him until he proves that he's able to carry that on his own with his own individual habits.
What gives you confidence that it will translate on Saturdays for him?
When he starts doing it on Saturday. So up until then, we stay on him. Up until then, we stay on him. Absolutely.
Kelsey, two things. One, do you lock a guy into a spot, or do you cross-train, meaning your young guys are going to learn slot and outside? How do you handle that with freshmen? And two, how consistent has this group been? Are you pleased with their consistency in terms of catching the ball and everything to this point through camp?
Absolutely. So the way we train them is anytime we're installing anything, it's full concepts. Guys have to know the full concept. So even if you're just playing the outside receiver, you should know what the slot's doing because your job dictates him. So everybody's learning full concepts. Now, when we're on the grass, you're learning one position initially, right? And then like we spoke about earlier, as I master that, then we can move you inside. But as far as learning, everybody's learning full concepts. Just in the heat of the moment, I'm playing one position, and as I master that, then I can start to play multiple positions. And the consistency piece, I think that was the biggest thing today, right? We're past the halfway point in camp. Guys' bodies are starting to get tired, so it becomes more of a mental game. And to me, in order to be consistent, it's all details and all execution, right? The first couple days, really the first week, everybody's jacked up off Mountain Dew and fired up and ready to go. And then now, when your body's tired, this really separates the elite from the average guys. So the detail, the execution, those are the things that's going to help you be consistent. Coach Hype talks about competitive composure. In order to be competitive when you're tired, you got to stay composed when the bullets are flying, and that detail piece has to be incorporated. You have to apply it. And that's what's allowed us to be consistent over the last couple of days. Scrimmage showed that. We had some plays that we left on the field during the scrimmage, but for the most part, I felt like we were really consistent with our tempo, with our operation. So it was a solid day.
Kellyanne in the back.
Hey, Coach, a couple of things. One, how is Walker Merrill performing in this camp? And two, how is that competition on the outside? I know you mentioned a plethora of receivers before, but is there anybody specifically standing out there?
Yeah, Walk's one. Walk has had a really good camp. For him, last spring, he had a knee injury that he kind of had to work through. So camp, he was kind of just working back. He's been really good because Walker plays harder than anybody on the field. So he's always going to give himself a chance to be successful. As far as the competition piece, I think we've done a good job of placing guys in different spots, placing guys with the ones, with the twos here to create competition in the room. Really, a lot of times with these guys, competition is the best influence. When you see a guy behind you, like Squirrel White, like Chaz Nimrod, like Caleb Webb, ready to do anything they can to get on the field, naturally, you're going to get a little bit more sense of urgency when it's time for you to play, put a little bit more pressure on you to make those plays. And I think that is what creates competition. Guys behind you being urgent and pushing you every day.
Patrick Pitts.
Coach, a couple things. Coach Golish, talking to us before camp started, said that Jimmy Callaway's been super inconsistent pretty much since you guys got here. Have you seen more consistency from him?
Yeah, he's been better. Jimmy's a guy that he's got to have a routine, right? When he gets out of a routine, he can kind of, become inconsistent. He's definitely been better, but I think, honestly, our environment has created that. Our head guy does a great job of creating an environment where guys can be successful. So you need guys to be positive. You need guys to be energetic. And usually when you're in those type of environments, you're going to be the best version of yourself, and Coach Hype does a great job of creating an environment where guys can be successful. So not a lot of long faces, not a lot of bad body language. He does a good job of creating environments when guys like Jimmy can become the best versions of themselves.
The second one, the rotation. I think you guys kind of last 2 months of the season really kind of stuck with your three main guys, your three starters. Do you envision being able to play more guys to at least start the season and see kind of how things shake out, or are you still waiting to see on some guys that can show that they've earned the chance to play?
Yeah, we're going to play the guys that are ready to play. If we got 2 guys ready to play, we'll play 12 personnel, we'll play 2 receivers. If we got 10 that can play, we'll roll in platoons. But I'm not a big believer in just throwing guys out there that don't know what they're doing, right? Like, the guys that can play, who've proved that, who've been consistent and show that they're competitive enough to do that snap in and snap out, like, those are the guys going to play. Whether it's 2 or 20, whoever's ready to play is going to be on the field.
Kelsey, in the spring, I know the recruiting aspect of it was a little bit of a transition for you to catch up a little bit. You're a relationship guy, so Coach Heupel mentioned that he thought that would be natural for you. Can you kind of take us through what that experience has been like for you now going through a cycle being a recruiter for the University of Tennessee?
Yeah, I think early on it's definitely a transition, but right, transitions, they always have an ending point. And that's back to the environment, right? That depends a lot on your environment. If you're in an environment where you're expected to recruit and it's set aside daily for the recruit, that transition is going to be a lot shorter than if you're on your own and nobody else is setting that expectation. So for that transition was seamless because Coach Hype has things in our daily schedule that is pertaining directly to recruiting and recruiting only. So you build habits naturally and you're able to be successful when transitioning in situations like that.
We'll finish with Wes.
Kelsey, for guys like Hyatt and Merrill, I guess especially, last season it seemed like early in the year those were going to be guys who were a big part of the offense, and then after a few games the rotation kind of changes and they don't play as much the rest of the year. How tough can that be for a young player to kind of go through, and what do you learn about a player when they handle something like that?
Absolutely. I think this game is really indicative of the way you live your life, right? Like, there'll be a bunch of times where you're bummed out or you're not satisfied or, something hurts your feelings. Like, the way you respond to this game, and we tell our guys that all the time, that'll be the way you respond to life when you're 40, 50 years old and you come home and, your kid's suspended. Like, you can't put your head down and mope around the house all day, right? So a really cool story, Velas didn't play the first couple of games last season. He had that exact situation. And what that kid decided to do was to respond the right way. I had that exact conversation with him, and it changed the trajectory of his season and probably will change the trajectory of his life. He's in position he always wanted to be in. He's got the bull by the horns right now, and it's simply because of the way he responded in a time that he was, he had unfortunate circumstances. He was down, responded the right way, and now he is where he is. And so the cool thing about that is Jalen Hyatt saw that firsthand, and I'm sure that's got some sense of why he's urgent and mentally in a different space. Cedric Tillman saw that firsthand. I saw it firsthand. Like, it helped me personally in my own journey. But when you have examples like that are alive and you're able to live through, it changes you forever when you see those guys respond the right way. So the same way they respond in life, do it on the field, and it becomes habit. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.